أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة المتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to our dear viewers and everyone who are viewing our programs wherever you may be. Ramadan Mubarak again, and ahlan wa sahlan, welcome to my beloved brother, Dr. Wazir Kudrat. It's a pleasure having him here today. Ahlan wa sahlan, Dr. Wazir.
Ahlan bik ya Sheikh.
Jazakallah khair.
Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam. So for our viewers, Dr. Wazir, very quickly, he's a graduate from, is a medical doctor. He graduated from the University of Baghdad, and he did his MBA. He's a candidate University of Houston. He's also the CEO of Kudrat Health Education and the CEO of Kudrat Medical Board Review. And so today I've invited him for us to talk. And also Wazir has, he come from a very strong Islamic background as a young man growing up also through university, alhamdulillah, and he was able to attend some full-time course, a one-year full-time course in Guyana when he was there. So he's coming with a background with Islam and also a medical stuff. So today we want to talk about, Dr. Wazir, about Ramadan and fasting, because I think sometimes it becomes a very difficult question for many people who are suffering with diabetes. And we know that taking care of your health is part of Deen, right? Taking care of your health is actually entrenched in the Islamic principles. And so we want to talk today, a person who is fasting. What is the current understanding on diabetes patients being able to fast?
Now, you're right. It is a growing topic among our community. And we must see it in the perspective of the evolution of knowledge and understanding of the disease. The background information is, as the Quran tells us, if you're sick, then you can postpone the fast or you can pay the fidya. So that's the background of it. But of course, what is better for you is if you could fast. So with that background now, the question becomes, can a diabetic patient fast if they so wish to do? Now, in the past, the answer was generally no. And the reason for that was because of the risk of hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Because during the fast, for a period of 12 to 15, 16 hours, the person is not consuming any calories, any food. So therefore, if the person is taking medications for diabetes and continue to take medications for diabetes, now we have here a situation where the medication is meant to lower blood sugar, but you're not taking any food. So the two comes together, and what we have here is a risk of very low blood sugar, which has its danger. Now, that recommendation was in the past based on the medications that were mostly used in the past.
At that time.
Mostly in the past, the medications that were used for by the way, I must pause and say we are talking specifically type 2 diabetes. And on the type 2 diabetes, we have to classify those who are not on insulin, those who are on insulin. So now I'm addressing those who are not on insulin, but have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which covers the majority of people, the large majority. I'll say approximately 85, 90%. So let's deal with the majority first, that large section of our community. In the past, the standard drugs were metformin, and another drug that was used to augment that, it belongs to a group called sulfonylureas. Now, the sulfonylureas, example of drugs like that is like glyburide. Now, these drugs by themselves, the sulfonylureas, and for our viewers who are still taking that, though more and more physicians are walking away from the use of that drug because there are better drugs on the market right now. But in the past, those were the two standards. Research have shown that the sulfonylureas have a higher risk of creating low blood sugar and hypoglycemia. And based on this, the recommendations were made that the diabetic patient, type 2 diabetic patient, should avoid the fast for the fear of becoming hypoglycemic and the dangers of hypoglycemia, which, of course, I should right away, we should say, okay, the danger is that the patient can lose consciousness, can faint, can go into a coma in severe instances. So that was the framework of the past. Let's move on now. Well, now we've got newer drugs, and hardly are physicians using the sulfonylureas such as glipizide and glyburide. Now we have newer drugs on the market, and most of these newer drugs have less and less risk, almost to zero risk of hypoglycemia or creating low blood sugar.
Low blood sugar, yeah.
If you are on metformin by itself, that's all you're taking, the research have shown that metformin has almost an insignificant risk of causing low blood sugar. So the recommendation is you can fast if you so wish. You can fast without any problem with affecting you. And you can also fast. You don't need to adjust dosage of metformin because it is not considered a drug that will cause hypoglycemia. It works really by increasing the sensitivity of the insulin receptors. So the other drugs, for example, very, very popular Ozempic and that the GLP-1 drugs, that classification of drugs, the research have shown also that they do not cause any significant amount of low blood sugar. So generally is considered safe, but the recommendation to be on the side of caution is that one should adjust dose.
Yeah. The quick thing though, the idea of having this discussion is to bring people at ease, those who are diabetic, and Ramadan is here and they're fasting. And of course, you mentioned the point, man kana maridan aw safar, a person who's sick and he's traveled, they can, defer their fast until they get better. But if it's something like a chronic sickness, then you pay the fidya. But in a case like, we want to bring people at ease to say, okay, I'm diabetic, but I can still enjoy this blessing of fasting. And I think now we are more prepared and we have more drugs that can enable people to do so, right?
And that's the overwhelming opinion. Yes. Yeah. And the only thing that may need to be done, and in consultation with your physician, is if I'm going to lower the dose of my drug because I'm not taking food for 14 hours.
Yeah.
Metformin is generally safe. You don't need to lower that dose. But others, such as Ozempic or other GLP-1 drugs that you may be taking, or Giardians, which is a newest drug on the market, you may need to lower the dose a little, just as a precaution against using a combination of drugs that can possibly create hypoglycemia. But the overwhelming opinion is that the research have showing now that periods of fasting actually benefit diabetic patients. In fact, many researchers are now showing that the reason why in type 2 diabetes our problem is that our insulin receptors have become desensitized because of being exposed to too much insulin. Now, why do we produce and release so much insulin? Because we are stimulating our pancreas. Food, when it enters the stomach, sends a signal to the pancreas to release insulin. Yeah. In some people, they release excessive amount chronically, which now desensitize receptors. Yeah. The receptors cannot perform properly. And the researchers are showing fasting, that period of fasting, is now disinhibiting the pancreas from releasing the insulin. And so the receptors, the insulin receptors, are having a sort of a breather, moments from which they can now resensitize themselves, regenerate themselves. Yes. I always give the example quickly. If someone is slapping you all the time nonstop, eventually your face gets numb. So therefore, if they stop slapping you and wait for a few minutes and your nerves regenerate and they slap you, you feel it even more.
Yeah.
The nerves are more functional. So in type 2 diabetes, the massive amount of insulin is slapping the receptors all the time, so they become desensitized. So to summarize, I know the time is limited.
Yeah.
The research...
Just very quickly, Dr. Wazir, we talk about a type 2 here. Person with type 1, insulin user. I think this is something that we need to address also. a person Islamically, a person fasts and they can take insulin. There is nothing wrong with that. This is the
Yeah.
general opinion of the scholars, that
Yes.
even if you take in insulin while you're fasting, there is nothing wrong, as
Right.
long you're not injecting your body with any kind of nutritious fluid that keeps you up. But you're okay to do that. And if your doctor give you the okay, a trustworthy doctor give you the okay that you can do that, you should, right? So very quickly,
The
touch
caution
something
here,
like
yeah, the caution here, because the patient is not eating for several hours, that the dose of insulin may need to be regulated, because this can cause severe hypoglycemia and throw the patient into dizziness, fainting, and unconsciousness. So once we adjust the dose according to the food intake,
yeah,
to match the food intake, then it's totally all right. Of course, your physician helping you to adjust your dose to the right amount. But you cannot go about taking the same dose of insulin when you're not taking the same amount of food. That's a whammy. So the idea is, can I fast? Yes. Condition, adjust your dosage.
yeah. And then, Dr. Wazir, I think it will be a kind of advisable for people to do spontaneous blood check. I mean, test their blood to see how they are doing in the, like, later in the afternoon before breaking the fast, so they know the numbers. They can able to regulate their tablets. They can able to regulate their insulin. Is that so?
That's a perfect suggestion that you made there. Normally people will check their blood sugar maybe once a day. If you're fasting, then you should take it at least 2 or 3 times a day. Check your blood sugar, just to keep on top of things, just to make sure you're in control of everything, and at the same time reaping the benefit of the fast, not just the spiritual benefit of the fast, but also what researchers are finding out now, the physical benefits on the body.
Okay. Very quickly, we have like 30 seconds. Can you just tell our audience like some of the signs of hypoglycemic?
That's a good point. Yes. One should look out for things like excessive sweating, dizziness, some levels of palpitations.
Body shaking?
Yes. So tremors, trembling. So once you start to feel those, then you must know, okay, these are danger signs. Check your blood sugar right away. Check your blood sugar right away, or have someone check it for you, and then you can adjust yourself. Because if the blood sugar is low, and what is blood sugar low? If the blood sugar is falling, somewhere below 80, below 80, some people say 60, it's okay, but to be safe, because we have maybe elderly, people above 50 trying to fast and so forth, and maybe there are some other complications like hypertension and so forth, other factors that has to play in. But my suggestion, if the blood sugar falls below 80, then you should take that step of, okay, Allah knows best, Allah is merciful, let me prevent a bigger problem by eating something.
Thank you very much, Doc. I really appreciate it. I know you're joining us from Houston. You're an hour behind us. We'll be breaking fast probably another 20 minutes. What time are you breaking fast? How long?
About 7:31, 7:32.
Okay, very quickly, how the Muslim vibes and the Islamic vibes and the culture in Houston, in Texas?
Mashallah, man, it's growing every year. You feel the dynamism, you feel the growth in the community, not just in numbers, but in quality, the qualitative growth. Younger people, everyone turning up to the mat. I was at the mosque last night at Clear Lake Islamic Center there, with the Imam is Dr.
Sheikh Walid Bassiouni.
Walid Bassiouni. I would say it's about 1,000 people there.
Subhanallah.
1,000. And mashallah, so it's a positive sign. I think our ummah, our community, is on the upward trend by Iznillah, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you so much. And the same thing here in New Jersey also. It's been tremendous. The turnout in many of the masajid are really jam-packed. And I think what is happening worldwide is having an effect on people also. The ummah is going through pain, but at the same time there is joy. And then we have to go through pain and joy within the same moment, and how we can able to, to capture that within Ramadan.
And Sheikh Nazibul, it's the same thing with fasting. It's both joy and the pain of hunger.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we are perfectly trained for that.
Thank you, Dr. Wazir. Appreciate having you. Inshallah, I think I wish all my brothers and sisters who are diabetic a very safe and healthy Ramadan, inshallah. We probably will address this some other time again. If there's any question, you can send it in and we can able to address these. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.